Hi everyone, Jill here. Welcome back to my kitchen. Today we are going to be rehydrating some freeze-dried food that I freeze-dried over a year ago. We do a lot of freeze-dried content, but one of the questions we always get asked is, well, how do you use that later? How do you rehydrate it? How do you reconstitute it? Does it taste the same? Does it not? So I forwarded to my pantry and just kind of evaluated what I had and what I could make. So tonight we are making shrimp tacos, and I thought making a fun little coleslaw to go with it would be great. And turns out we have got a ton of freeze-dried cabbage that we harvested last January. So it is exactly almost a year later. We're gonna put it to the test and see what it tastes like. So here I have some of the freeze-dried cabbage. You can tell it still has its color. It's still got a good little crunch to it. So I've got a little bit here. I did shred some carrots that I just harvested for a fresh crunch. And then I've got the sauce, right? So we've just got some mayo, some sugar, vinegar, lemon juice, salt, and pepper. Now I did add a little bit of raw milk to make it a little bit more liquidy, and that is because I needed this to be a bit wetter because of the freeze-dried cabbage. Now, one thing I will tell you guys, if you're making something like a slaw or something that is intended to have a crunch, once you reconstitute that, it's not going to preserve that crunch, right? So we shredded a bunch of this cabbage because we love cabbage soup, and so I knew that it didn't necessarily need to be crunchy. It was gonna end up being a bit wilty, but it was just a good wholesome meal. So for this in particular, the coleslaw, you want that good crunch, right? You want the integrity of what a coleslaw should taste like. And so that's why I omitted to use fresh carrots here instead of a freeze-dried carrot, because otherwise it's just gonna become soggy. It's still probably gonna taste well, but it's not gonna have that traditional crunch that we are used to. And so that is one thing to be mindful of. If you are rehydrating a freeze-dried food that was meant to be crunchy, think about adding some ingredients that have that crunch and then we're not freeze-dried. So all I'm going to do is take my coleslaw here and throw it into a bowl. I might not have enough liquid. You can do anything here. You could have some red cabbage that you added, the carrots that I'm adding here. So throw some carrots in there. And now comes the fun part when we get to drizzle our dressing on it. Take my spoon and give it a good stir. It is certainly starting to look like coleslaw. Now, like I said, you could totally play around. You could add some red cabbage. You could add all sorts of stuff to this. My main purpose of this was to see if this is a way that I could rehydrate my cabbage and use it specifically in the summertime, right? When we're eating a lot more fresh things, where a nice summer slaw is really appealing because we have so much of this. We freeze-dried the majority of our cabbage harvest last January. I knew it would just be super versatile to throw into things. So here we have what it looks like. It looks like a traditional slaw, in my opinion. And so now that everything's good and coated, I did add that extra milk that I was talking about just to try to, reconstitute and rehydrate that cabbage. And now all we need to do is just give it a taste and see what it tastes like 1 year later. One thing we love about freeze drying is it's pretty hands off, right? I had cutting the cabbage, throwing it in the freeze dryer, but other than that, that was it. There wasn't a whole lot else that I had to do. So let me get a nice little spoonful here and we'll take a bite. So I still actually have the crunchiness of the cabbage, which is surprising to me, but the fresh carrots really help with that, because as this sits, traditionally when you make a slaw, you'll make it like this and you pop it in the fridge for an hour or 2 hours. I think as the liquid starts to absorb in that cabbage, it will start to wilt a little bit. Having that nice crunch from the carrot is really nice, especially if you were to shred up some red cabbage too to go in there. But the cabbage itself tastes great. And that's also a question we get asked is, when you freeze dry your food, do you lose the integrity of the taste? Cabbage is one of those, you know, you kind of have to heavily season it anyways. We saute it, do a lot of Asian stir fries. This still has the integrity of the cabbage. It's holding its structure well. It tastes really nice. You can totally play on flavors here. But my biggest takeaway would be making sure that you're adding other components for those crunchy elements that you're wanting. Like I said, if I were to throw this in a soup, we'd be totally fine. The flavor on that is spectacular. So I can really taste the acid from the lemon juice. I got the sweetness from the cane sugar. It all just marries and blends together really well. This will be a great addition to our shrimp tacos tonight. But this is me rehydrating cabbage that we preserved over a year ago, and guess what, it still tastes good. That is the whole point of a freeze dryer, is that there's longevity and there's a lot of different versatility that you can do. You can throw together a slaw and still have some crunchiness. You can throw it in a soup. You can throw it in a casserole, something of that regards, and it's still gonna have all of its nutritional value, which is really important to us. It still has its flavor, which is really important to us. The only thing that's gonna be altered slightly, depending on how you're using it, is the texture, right? It's either gonna turn a bit mushy in this regard, or depending on what you're doing, that's not really a problem at all. So this is what my cabbage tasted like rehydrated 1 year later. I really encourage you guys, do your research on the Harvest Right freeze dryers. I think it's really important to know which fruits and vegetables preserve the best and how they are best reconstituted, right? If we're talking about a fruit, those are good just to be enjoyed freeze dried, right? Reconstituting that is going to change the structure of the fruit itself depending on which fruit you're dealing with. Let's say a banana. You know, freeze drying a banana and having a freeze dried banana as a snack is great. Maybe throwing it in a smoothie is a really good option. But if you're wanting to reconstitute it to the state of its original form, it's gonna become mushy. Probably is not gonna be enjoyable to handle and eat. And so really when you're thinking about freeze drying, I encourage you guys, think about what it is that you're preserving and what is the use for it. All of our fruits get preserved for the sake of just enjoying as a freeze dried snack. But with most of our vegetables, we are freeze drying it with the intention of it going into maybe a soup or a casserole. Our intention behind that isn't to enjoy it in its original raw form. You know, we will sometimes cut up cabbage and just eat it as a snack. You're not going to get the same effect from this if you were to rehydrate the cabbage and just expect the integrity of that crunch. But there are some things you can do, like with this coleslaw here, you're really kind of able to play around with that. So I would encourage you guys, if you're thinking about buying a freeze dryer, have a goal and a vision in mind. It is an investment, but it's well worth it if you know what you plan on using it for, how you plan on preserving, how you plan on rehydrating and using it down the road. But I hope this was fun to watch me rehydrating my cabbage from a year ago and seeing how it tasted. So thanks for hanging out with me. I'll talk to you soon.